Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
What is up? Welcome in to a special off-season edition. We are the One and Done Show. We are your fast break of college basketball information. I am Eric Romoff. You can catch me on those Twitter streets at FantasyNav, and he is the captain of our ship. He has been poring over the books that is the college basketball season that was getting you ready for the season that will be. Mr. Mike Holland, MC Holland 34 on Twitter. Mike, welcome in. What do we got cooking tonight?
Man, I'm excited. ACC preview. Let's get this thing going. Just spent a lot of time. We got 15 teams here. Obviously, one of our favorite conferences to preview. So we're going to go team by team, break this thing down, see what the landscape's looking like. But I'm excited because we have our third member joining us tonight, Jay Heinrich. Jay, how are you?
Good, Mike. Good, Eric. What's up, guys? Been in the lab working on that top 20. Excited to get on One and Done with you guys and talk a little ACC hoops here. Getting ready for the season. Like you said, this is an exciting conference to talk about. Just ready to get this thing rolling.
Man, this conference is absolutely loaded. Seemed like the teams that finished right around the top last year, very much so, are back and potentially better than they were last year. Plenty of teams in the middle of the pack that really stacked up and are making a push. So definitely going to be a fun time reviewing the ACC. I guess a bit about the show. We are previewing the entire conference, top to bottom. We're going to go through all 15 teams, kind of broken them out into tiers in terms of where we think they will finish when the season is all said and done. And then once we've done that, Mike has queued up a fan favorite. He has projected the first team all-ACC for all 6 positions. This was a very popular thread that you put out there last year. Glad that we can bring it to the video medium. So with that, let's jump right in. The first team, our top team in the ACC heading into the 22-23 season, is none other than the North Carolina Tar Heels, coming off of a runner-up finish in the national title game last year. So obviously makes a lot of sense they are the team to beat. Mike, tell the people a little bit more about why they are the top-ranked team in our measure.
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, obviously that championship game was a lot of fun. And guess what? We're getting a bunch of guys back. We're getting their core 4 back. They do lose Brady Manick, who was huge in their run last year. A lot of questions on how they were going to replace him, right? And what do you know? The transfer portal is there for them. So, Pete Nance is going to come in here, a really good player for Northwestern. The name sounds and so their starting 5 looks like one of the best starting 5s in the country, and they should be ranked in the top 3 to kind of start the season. We're going to get Caleb Love back at the guard position. RJ Davis should be the captain of the ship at point guard. Armando Bacot, obviously a beast in the middle, huge season last year. Going to be a big part of what they do, and they have the lockdown defender Leaky Black coming back. So a lot to like here. It's just going to be an exciting team. Can they be consistent? It took them a while last year to gel. With so many pieces coming back, it's a pretty exciting time, obviously, for Tar Heel fans. Even though they finished second last year in the conference, Duke did beat them out. But, we saw what they were able to do to Duke, later on in the year. So, Jay, what are your thoughts moving forward on this team who should be ranked in the top 3 in the country?
Yeah, this was obviously a team coming in last season that maybe didn't have the expectations with the first-year head coach. And was Davis going to be able to figure out his way early on in his coaching career at North Carolina? Obviously played there, not like he was coming in unfamiliar with the territory, but when you have a first-year head coach coming into a program with the status of the Tar Heels, you sort of wonder, okay, is this going to take a little bit of time? And he did. It started off that way and then sort of got that footing, like you said, and then got hot at the right time and made obviously a really nice run in the tournament. For me, I think it's going to come down to can this team be an elite defensive team? It didn't create many turnovers last season. Are there players in this lineup that can step up and be turnover creators, be difference makers on that side of the ball? Did not have much of a bench at all last season. That's going to be something too. Like, is that a sustainable thing from season to season, not having a bench? But obviously the talent's there. The coaching, we saw it. Like, it's not like this. Don't feel like this was fluky at all. Like, definitely feel like this was a program that is headed in the right direction under Hubert Davis. And we obviously think they're going to be the best team in this conference. So yeah, this is going to be a really, really exciting team to watch with Baycott coming in. You got Caleb Love, who's number 17 in our top 20 countdown of players for the 2022-2023 season. And this is going to be an exciting team to watch.
Yeah, I think the thing to really key in on there, you mentioned them getting hot at the right time, and they did. But I also don't think that, that was just a hot streak, right? I think it was this team really getting its footing. They're bringing a lot of those pieces back, and they've managed to add in a number of different ways, right? They've shored up that depth. They've added some more scoring potential and scoring power by way of the transfer portal. So a lot to like with the North Carolina Tar Heels, and it makes a lot of sense why they are up top for us. Our number 2 team is one of their best friends, allegedly, the Duke Blue Devils. Like Mike mentioned a moment ago, they actually won the ACC itself, but were then bounced by those UNC Tar Heels in the Final Four in Coach K's last game. Sorry, Duke fans. Jay, tell us a little bit more about the Dukies and what has them in the 2 spot.
Everybody's favorite team to hate, right? And it's like, the Yankees, whoever else you love to hate. This is what Duke is. But every single year it seems to be like, Longhorns, right? Everybody's favorite team to hate. But from the perspective of year in and year out, just consistency and what what you're going to get out of this program. Duke's obviously up there. With Cher coming in, first year, you never want to be the guy to replace the guy. You want to be the guy that replaces the guy that replaced the guy. So, it's going to be interesting to see how he handles this in his first year as Duke head coach. Obviously, Krzyzewski was there for what feels like, 8 decades.
Eternity.
But, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, obviously here, number 1 recruiting class, Coach K leaving did not necessarily hurt that recruiting class. Number 1 recruiting class coming in. And whereas a concern for me for North Carolina was maybe the defensive side of the ball, Duke looks like a team that should finish better than they did last year after finishing 49th in defensive efficiency. So that to me is going to be the key for Duke, is if they're going to maintain that, that status and make another run deep and even to the Final Four. For me, Mike, this is going to be something where the defensive efficiency, the defensive side of the ball is something that I'm going to pay close attention to. Is there something that stands out to you for Duke that's going to be key for them to be able to, continue to head in that same path under a first-year head coach?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, right? Big-time recruiting class, but this is kind of the norm for Duke. I mean, it seems like every year they reload with 5 NBA caliber players. There's actually bringing in 5 5-star recruits. I mean, that's a ton of talent, right? The question is whether Shire is going to be able to, assimilate this group and, do the things that Coach K did. It seems like year after year. I mean, you lose, Banchero, AJ Griffin, Trevor Keels. I mean, that's a lot of talent each year to replace. It feels like they do it every year. So, they get 3 of the 4 top players on 24/7's composite here for high school players. Oh, are you there? You guys got me? Jake Grandison, he's someone that can stretch the floor and is really going to help them out on the offensive side. So definitely an interesting pickup here late in the transfer process. So I think he's obviously going to be huge for them because there's some questions about outside shooting. Obviously him coming in and solidifying, obviously going to create space, open up that floor, and then obviously let the talent just kind of take over. So. Is there enough minutes to go around, and does this team gel? That's kind of a question mark. Guys like Mark Mitchell, Tyrese Proctor, Jaden Shutt, might not have as many minutes as they would probably get playing for pretty much any other team in this conference. So I think that's the key component, is making sure that he figures out a way to make this team, gel, plug and play the right pieces at the right times. But they definitely have Final Four potential again. I think Jeremy Roach, the point guard, coming back is going to be a huge factor, and obviously he's got to improve his outside shooting. But he really changed the landscape last year when he was inserted into that starting lineup, and they really took off from there headed into tournament time. So, obviously they're going to challenge for that number 1 spot, and it wouldn't surprise me if they do.
Yeah, I kind of struggle with what to make of Duke heading into this season. I mean, we've got Coach Shire coming in for year one. Obviously, there's a ramp up to the head coaching level that he has to step into. But also, this team, like you touched on, they're losing 5 guys to the NBA. Granted, they have an incredibly talented recruiting class coming in to backfill them, but adjusting to the college game is going to take some time. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they're on a pretty similar arc that we saw from UNC last year. But also to really highlight the point, that was still an incredible, pretty rare run that the Tar Heels went on. So if 2 teams out of this conference can do in back-to-back years, would be all the more impressive. The third team in our list, our ranking, top to bottom in the ACC, is one of our favorites, a team that we covered a couple of months now back with our friend over from 24/7. That is the Miami Hurricanes. Obviously, Jim Larrañaga is heading into year 12 as a head coach, and they lost 3 starters, but also replaced them pretty well by way of the transfer portal. So, Mike, what's the kind of nitty gritty on these Canes? What has them all the way up at number 3?
Yeah, I think it's going to be another solid season. It's going to be interesting, though. How are they going to play offense this year? We saw it last year. They made the big run, and that was basically playing 4 guards and a stretch 5, essentially. They don't really have that this year, losing Sam Wardenberg. So I think it's really interesting to see how this lineup's going to shake out. Does Larrañaga decide to, play small again and put a heavy guard lineup out there? Is he going to play more traditional, because they were absolutely beat up inside? It felt like any team could really just dump it in the post and collect offensive rebounds and get easy putbacks against this team. But anytime you lose Charlie Moore, Cam McGusty, these guys were obviously pretty dominant here towards the end of the year. But they're going to get Isaiah Wong back, and he's someone that could be a difference maker. Looking at the transfer portal, there's been a lot of talk about the NIL and everything that's going on with that. Bringing in Nigel Pack from Kansas State. He's obviously an explosive player, someone that can put the ball in the bucket. And then Norchad Omier coming in as a defensive presence. He was a Sun Belt Player of the Year, a Defensive Player of the Year as well. But how does he really fit when you go from a 5-man that can stretch the floor like Wardenberg, and then now you're slotting in Omier and potentially Anthony Walker into the 4-5 spot? That's not really a ton of outside shooting. So I think the huge thing for me is, how does Larrañaga kind of adapt to this roster? Does he put someone like Harlan Beverly, alongside Wong here, as well as Nigel Pack? But it's just, that's kind of the key storyline for me. Jay, any thoughts on Miami and how their season's going to shake out?
Well, Wong is obviously was the best player last year, and coming in, expecting him to take that next step. And Nigel Pack coming in, I feel like, is going to help ease that load a little bit and allow him to be a little bit more focus a little bit more on the things that he does best. If he improves at 3-point shooting a little bit, like, he is going to be a contender for he's going to be a contender for all conference anyway. But like, he's going to be one of those players to watch, and I feel like as far as he evolves for this team, that's gonna tell a really big part of the story in terms of if Miami does finish as high in this conference as we think that they're going to. They turned people over a ton last season, like 7th best in the country at turnover rate. So like, if that's going to be, I'm sorry, that was on offense where they don't turn the ball over a lot, I should say. So being able to not give away possessions and make the most of what they can do, and with Wong and Pack being able to sort of lead that, that's going to be dangerous for Miami to get out there and get out in front of people. So it's another exciting team to watch. Another exciting team to follow. The ACC is full of these teams, and we saw Pack last year in the Big 12 up close and personal, and what he was capable of down here in Austin. So being able to transfer into Miami now and go alongside Wong, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, Pack is absolutely a huge addition for this team. I'm curious to know, right? I mean, Miami was one of our upset picks when we were filling out our bracket back in March. And it feels like they've got the pieces to make a pretty significant kind of stylistic change to how they approach the game this season. So we'll be one to watch to see if they tried to make that adjustment or if they tried to kind of take these pieces and fit into the system they ran last year. for us here at the top of the ACC, this is where we hit our first tier break, right? As we talked about it, really it feels like these three teams are the elite teams in the conference. But if you are checking in on YouTube, we want to hear from you. Do you agree that these are the three best teams? And who do you think is the best team in the conference? Is it one of these three? Is it maybe a different team that we will probably talk about very soon? The next team that we are going to talk about, the first one in that second tier, is the Virginia Cavaliers. We've got them returning all 5 starters from last year. So a lot of guys that are familiar with the system that have been able to prove themselves at the NCAA level. They also were able to add by way of the portal, like many of these top teams. So Jay, specifically looking at the Cavaliers, what has them, kind of as the best of that middle pack? Are there maybe a couple of worlds or outcomes where they can kind of creep in to the top of this conference?
Well, you know what you're going to get in terms of the coach, right? With Tony Bennett, it's going to be a well-coached team. They're going to play good team basketball. They don't turn the ball over too much. They assist on a ton of their baskets. A very unselfish brand of basketball. But what causes a team like that, even at the highest level, if it's not your night, you're a 1 seed and you lose to a 16 seed, right? Like when you play with the tempo that Virginia plays at. If it's not your night and your shots aren't falling, then you're susceptible to those kind of bad beats. And I think we've seen enough consistency out of Tony Bennett and his teams to know, like, okay, that was probably an anomaly, but we see it can happen on any given night with a team like that, even with as talented as they are. So that's just who he is, right? It's like when we talk about Chris Beard in Texas and you guys just talked to Brian Davis from the Austin American Statesman. It's like, well, can we expect anything different? Well, this is who Tony Bennett is. So, like, can he continue in this high-paced league with a lot of excitement? And he just wants – they're gonna play their brand of basketball, and you almost got to respect it just with how consistent that they are with it. Mike, aside from the slow pace, it's obviously a very talented team. What's going to stand out to you in terms of maybe letting Virginia – creep up out of that second tier and maybe get up into the top tier of this conference? Is there anything that they can do to elevate themselves?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting team, right? You talked about it. Tony Bennett's obviously an amazing coach, but like you said, you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, it's just really, can they establish? Oh, you guys catch me?
We're back.
Oh, we're back, man. Sorry, I'm having some internet issues, I guess, here. Might have to blame it on Rhodey over here. We haven't seen him in a few
over
shows.
Here chewing on the cord, right?
Yeah, over here chewing on the cord. But no, I was just saying, anytime you get 5 starters back, it's a huge deal, right? Especially when you get someone like Jaden Gardner, who really, really good 4-man here. Kihei Clark, it feels like he's been around for 10 years. So, he's definitely someone to watch for here, the lead point guard. But the guy that stands out, Ben Vanderplas, it'll be interesting to see this transfer from Ohio coming over, his first team All-MAC. Can really shoot it, do some different things, is a good passer out of the post. So how he kind of fits into the situation is interesting. I think it gives them a little more of a dynamic look, depending on how they kind of want to play. But it's interesting, right? This team's not a good outside shooting team. They do return everybody back. So can they improve on shooting? It seems like the theme that we're going to talk about a lot. And I know Jay, you were always talking about if these guys can improve their outside shooting, well, it makes a huge difference in the college game, where sometimes these games get ugly and sloppy, and that 3 ball is worth, it feels like 4 points sometimes. So definitely an interesting team. Obviously going to rely on their defense, but I think overall, when you bring back 5 starters, that just caused to obviously make a run at the top 3 here. So we'll see how they do.
Yeah, the continuity that any team gets returning that many starters, nevertheless, all 5 of them, is a huge advantage. But Jay, I'm really glad you made that Texas comp. That was exactly what was coming to mind for me as you were breaking down this team, right? Like it feels like they're designed to basically win or lose on who has the last possession. And obviously that can leave you on the wrong side of those outcomes, often enough. So if they are to pick up the shooting, even just an incremental amount, it changes their outlook dramatically. Another team that is at least hoping to change their outlook for the 2022 season is our number 5 team, Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They lost several key players. That's really the big headline there. One of my favorites, a guy that put a lot of money into my pocket, Mr. Blake Wesley, among them. Mike, what's going on with the Fighting Irish this year?
Yeah, they lose Blake Wesley. Paul Atkinson was that big man in the middle. I think that's going to be an area where they're going to kind of struggle. Nate Lejeski was the 4-man last year. He's probably going to have to slide into that 5-man role. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of handles with that. It looks like this team's probably going to play small. But these guys are super dangerous. I mean, they can shoot threes like crazy. They do return Dane Goodwin, great shooter, Cormac Ryan, Marcus Hammond. They bring it over from Niagara, who's number 63 on our Dr. Roeder transfer board. He shot 37% from 3. So, these guys are going to be able to light up the scoreboard, and that's how they won a lot of games last year. So it seems very disciplined. Mike Bray's obviously been around for forever, knows what he wants to do, knows the style of play. Kind of like Tony Bennett. He kind of wants to play the other way. He wants to live and die by the 3. So it'll be interesting to see kind of when these two teams play. It'll be fun to watch what style kind of comes through. But you can never count out a team that has great outside shooting. So, Jay, what are your thoughts on the Fighting Irish?
I'm glad you brought up Hammond. He's somebody that obviously he just gets buckets, and most of them from beyond the arc, and he fits that what they're trying to accomplish there in South Bend. 18 points a game last year at Niagara. That's that's a bucket getter. And you can never have too many of those in the college game. You like to see a little bit more toughness maybe out of the squad, a little bit of a finesse reputation. And that sort of comes with the territory of being, the run and gun, taking a lot of threes. You don't really bang around a lot. You're trying to get the ball out and get a quick 3 up and then and do it again next possession. So it's like, are they going to need to turn up the toughness at times? Probably, if they expect to elevate themselves a little bit in this conference. But they're going to be lights out some nights. This is a team that could score 85, 90 points on any given night without blinking when they're on. And that's the type of game that they want to play. So I'm glad you brought up Hammond there. And, yeah, it's a team that, again, like if it's not their night, I mean, that's college basketball, right? But really, though, and truly, if it's not their night from beyond the arc, those are the games that you're going to look at the scoreboard or the box score after and be like, Notre Dame lost to who? Well, their threes weren't falling tonight, and they weren't tough down low, so they ended up losing that one. So that, to me, is really a key for this one. And Hammond transferring in is only going to boost their capability in being the type of team that they want to be.
Yeah, I think the thing that at least would give me more cause for optimism, Mike, you mentioned the strength of this recruiting class overall, but there's a lot of versatility in these guys that are coming in too, right? So I think that they can try to deploy them in different ways and in different configurations and really find a rhythm that should have them, pretty happy with how they finished the year out. Another team here in this middle pack, our number 16 in North Carolina State, the Wolfpack, another team that lost a lot of guys, unfortunately. So they've been able to piecemeal some things together. Jay, tell us a little bit more about what's going on with the Wolfpack.
Well, with Terquavion Smith, who's somebody that is going to show up a little bit later on in our top 20 countdown for this season, he's somebody that immediately stands out as a guy that just does a little bit of everything for this team, shoots the ball well from distance, and I think this team's going to go as far as he takes them. They didn't really have much of a recruiting class, spent most of their time in the portal, so they're one of those squads that doesn't quite have that continuity necessarily in terms of their entire roster. In fact, really, out of the projected starters, Smith is the only one that's returning. So how will that play out? Like there are guys that were on this team last year, but they didn't start, right? So how do you manage that in terms of your starting the game off the way you want to start? And it just looks to me like Smith being that guy, and then you bring in a guy like Clark from LaSalle, Burns from Winthrop. Like, how do those pieces fit together for this team? It could be a team that could take a little bit of time to gel until we see, the type of team that they're going to end up wanting to be as the season goes on. Mike, what sort of standing out to you for this squad?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it with Terquavian Smith. I mean, just an absolute bucket getter. It's surprising that he didn't end up staying in the draft. There was a lot of talk that he was a late first rounder. Decided to come back. So, man, like this just obviously heightens the ceiling here for this team. For me, I'm probably the sixth spot for this team in the ACC. Might seem like a stretch. That's kind of a borderline NCAA team, but I really like what they did in the portal. And I think what you're saying here, Jay, about them, it's going to take a little bit of time for them to make this work. But I think when you get, DJ Burns coming in here, who was the Big South MVP, someone that can really bang inside, get things done inside. They were absolutely terrible inside. A lot of that had to do with Manny Bates' injury early in the season. But, I think now you add in someone like Jack Clark. He's a 6'8" guy that can kind of do a lot of different things, and definitely a lot better in the front court area, where last year it just felt like they were just trying to get Duana to get some experience in there and really just running small lineups out there. So, definitely a quality team, but I do think it's going to take time to gel. And, a lot of transfers, right? Jarkel Joyner comes over from Ole Miss, so he's going to be able to take some of that ball pressure off of Terquavian Smith. But I think at the end of the day, you just give the ball to Smith, man, and he's he's going to make some things happen. He's a projected late first rounder that could turn into a top 15 type pick. So, it's lottery territory, and I'm expecting huge things. And I think Eric's expecting huge things for his wallet by rostering Smith in DFS this year.
He's all ours. No, the thing for me with the Wolfpack, right? Like you look at just how active they were in the portal. And these guys are all over the place on your big board over at drroto.com, right? They've got guys that are coming in. They decided to buck the trend, and they went with the old addition by addition approach. Mike, you mentioned that you're probably a bit more bullish on this team than others. If anyone out there is checking in on YouTube and you agree with Mike that the Wolfpack are going to surprise some folks, go ahead and smash that like button, show them some love. We will move on to our number 7 team. If you're not picking up on the theme, another team that had a lot of roster turnover, but fortunately for them, some of the pieces that they lost to injury last year look to be healthy. That is the Florida State Seminoles. Mike, what's going on with those Noles?
Yeah, a ton of injuries last year. I think when we were playing DFS at the end of the year, we were like, I don't even know who this guy is. Just plug and play, right? So definitely, obviously a team that has a lot of upside if everyone's healthy. I know we have them at 7. I think they have a possibility to get up to that 3-4 spot. We know what Leonard Hamilton's capable of. Not really the season that we're used to him seeing. They were 106th in defensive efficiency. That is pretty poor by their standards. I think in the last 5 years, they were in the top 50. So this team's really built on defense. One of my favorite players transferred over from Houston, Caleb Mills. Struggled with some injuries there at times, but he's someone that can average 16 to 18 points a game. I think Baba Miller is super interesting. We don't see too many international guys that are projected to be first rounders in the future to kind of come to college first before they go pro. So he's someone I'm expecting to start. He's a shot blocker. He's got some handles for almost a 7-footer. So I think he's going to be super interesting. But, this lineup, it's got a lot of talent in it. It's just whether or not they can stay healthy. Jay, what are your thoughts?
We know that this was a team that was just devastated by injuries last year. But on the other side of that coin, when some of your best players end up getting hurt, that leads to a lot of younger players on your roster being able to get some time. And when you look at somebody like Matthew Cleveland, who's now going into his sophomore season, that's somebody that got that shine that might not have been able to get that early on had those injuries not happened. And now you expect him to be somebody that is going to be a leader on this team night in and night out. And it's almost like, we were able to get through that and get on the other side of this. And now we're able to see what we had. And some of those guys got some experience, which in a top to bottom, a pretty deep conference, you're going to need those guys deeper on your bench to come through for you on some nights. So even though Cleveland is on the higher end of those younger players that got a lot of experience, there's going to be guys that are going to be able to fill roles and do it well because they got meaningful time in ACC basketball last year. And that to me is something to really, really watch as this team sort of, again, relearns who they are and how to play together after coming off a season that didn't go the way that they wanted it to. But I think there is some silver lining in the way that season played out for them.
Yeah, and I mean, now that we are, essentially at the midway point of this preview, going top to bottom on all 15 teams, it should pop out to many that ACC experience is incredibly difficult experience, right? These teams that are kind of in the middle of the pack would likely be competitive in many of the other conferences across the country. So certainly a fair point, Jay, that these guys having gotten some run in conference can absolutely help propel them as we head into the 22-23 season. Our number 8 team, as we make the turn, we're looking at the Virginia Tech Hokies, another team lost some, maybe not quite as many significant players, but definitely had some guys heading out the door. But also were able to try and rearm by way of the portal and by way of their recruiting class. Jay, kick us off and tell us what's going on with Virginia Tech.
Well, this was the team that won the ACC tournament last year. Sort of surprised a lot of people after finishing 7th in the conference during the regular season. Surprised a lot of people, went on a really nice run and won that postseason ACC tournament. So that's something to build on for a team like this that sort of is forecasted to be in the middle of this conference. They can use that as that motivation. Hey, we can play with anybody in the conference. Where's our respect? And anytime you have, with college kids or in any sports level for that matter, when you can play with a chip on your shoulder, that's going to help them along the way. This team, in a conference of teams that want to shoot the 3-ball, this team can shoot the 3-ball. And last season they were 3rd in the country at 39% from 3. This is another team that's just going to want to shoot from deep. Live and die by that a little bit, and then you can go on runs like they did in the ACC tournament last year. But is that sustainable? That's something to watch as they get into conference play. They are returning 3 guys that shoot it really, really well from deep. Mike, what else stands out to you for the Hokies?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, right? But really, for me, it comes down to Justin Mutz. Getting him back was huge. You lose Kive Aluma off to the professional ranks. One of the dynamic duo they had there in the front court. A lot of fun to watch last year, but they are getting Justin Mutz back. And this guy is a triple-double threat at the 4 positions. So definitely a player that can make a bunch of different things happen. He's someone that I'm pretty excited to see in the ACC this year. I think they did a pretty good job in the portal too. Getting Grant Bassall from Wright State, we kind of saw him in the play-in game against Bryant there. A really nice big here, 6'9", probably not the defender that Aluma is, but definitely another body obviously inside. I think this team's interesting. I worry about them defensively. Some of these guys don't really have the defensive prowess that some of these other teams are going to have. So you're right. If you're not making the threes, kind of like Notre Dame, it's going to be tough. But I think they're a little different than Notre Dame because they're going to carry Justin Mutz, and you can drop it down to him on the elbow, play through the post, high screen and roll with him. He can shoot it a little bit. So, I think they're actually one of the teams that's kind of well equipped to surprise people. And I think anytime you have a team that can shoot the 3-ball, it just gives you a chance each and every night in the college game. So, unfortunately, being down here in Austin, we see some clankers, from 3-point line, and you get a team that shoots 40% on a season, you're going to win a lot of games. So, it's definitely an exciting team to watch. I just worry about them on the defensive side.
Man, I am absolutely excited to see Justin Mutz have more of a role in this offense and really step into that leadership position. And the thing that I think both of you touched on to different degrees that is really of note for the Hokies is when a team is so effective at shooting from outside, not only are they set up to surprise people, but they're set up for these tournament runs, right? You talked about them surprising their way to the ACC tournament. You get hot from outside, you can score more or at least put more points on the board with your shooting than your opponent, and you can make a little run here. So, while the Hokies are sitting in the middle of the pack in our rankings for the upcoming season, certainly a team that could sneak up and make a little noise in either of the tournaments. The number 9 team heading over to Pittsburgh to cover the Panthers, another team that is at least doing pretty well for themselves in the portal. They are returning a couple of guys for Coach Jeff Capel, heading into year 5. So, Mike, what is it that could potentially surprise about the Panthers for you?
I think, you hit it starting out. Then another nice job in the portal here. This team couldn't shoot. They're pretty poor from three. I mean, 283 shot. We just got done talking about a team that shot almost 40%. This team shot 30% basically from three. So, yeah, they went out and got some guys that can shoot. Greg Elliott, playing for Shaka Smart last year on Marquette. That guy can absolutely shoot. He's a 40% shooter from distance. Nelly Cummings comes in from Colgate. He can do some things other than shoot the outside shot, but he's 36% from deep. He can get in there and create. We saw him and kind of the things that he can do last year. So, yeah, if you're going to improve the three-point shooting, that's obviously going to give you some upside. I'm a little worried, again, on the defensive end. I think that's kind of the separator, right? It's the teams at the top we think can be pretty good defensively. The teams at the bottom or in the middle to bottom, you kind of worry about them defensively or if they're able to, kind of create space and make the outside shot. But anytime you got John Hugley, you dump it inside to him, averaged 15 and 8 last year. Just talented inside. Obviously, needs to work on his free throw game. Taking as many free throws as he can, you got to start putting some of those in the bucket. We're not a great free throw shooting team. So, I think for me, there's a little bit of upside here, not as much as someone like a Virginia Tech. Jay, what are your thoughts on the Panthers?
You got a coach that is probably on the hot seat here. I mean, they need to perform. And this can go one of two ways. You see a team that rallies around a coach and finds a way to play well and shoot well at the right time and play good against the right competition and beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. And I think in the ACC that might be enough to save his job. But this is a team, this is a must. It's a season where they got to win some games for their coach. I think a wild card for me is going to be a couple of international signees, some twins where you had Guillermo and Jorge Diaz-Graham that Capel is really high on, said that they're really they can shoot the ball out at three. They have a good feel for the game. Since coming over to the States, they've improved their strength. So I think in a situation where you have a coach that probably knows he's got to win, you're going to throw stuff against the wall and see if it sticks. So we're going to see some of these guys. Obviously, Mike, you referred to Elliott and Cummings coming in the portal, but these signings, these international signings, I think we're probably going to get to see them get some run early on, and figure out if they're going to be people that are going to contribute in the conference play for this team, because something's got to give here, and that's usually like I said, when you see a coach who's sort of up against it, they're willing to try anything. So I think the twins are a couple of players to watch to see early on if they are in fact transitioning to the game in the States as well as their coach says they are.
Yeah, it certainly feels like this program is really on the precipice, right? They're kind of right at a potential turning point, one way or the other. Dior Johnson is obviously going to play a big role in how the season unfolds for them. But very much so feels like a program in transition. The last team that I want to talk about here in our middle tier is one of our absolute favorites, a tempo darling, the number 10 team, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Obviously, they lose Alondas Williams, Jake LaRavia to the NBA level, but have been keeping busy. They actually did pretty well for themselves in the portal. So Jay, why don't we start by highlighting some things to like about this upcoming season for the Deeks?
Well, it's like they've shown that they've used the portal to their advantage before. So is this a team that can again catch fire from the portal and help boost what they do really well? They're just a great shooting team. I mean, you've got four guys that shoot over 40% from three, and on any night that can keep you in any ball game. It's a matter of what else is everybody doing around them? Can this team stop the other team? Can they even get into positions to shoot those shots? It's just, to me, there's a lot of question marks here, even though they have a lot of good shooters. Like, can Wake find a way to keep that going in terms – this is a tough conference. Everybody, you got a couple of teams that like to slow the ball down, but there's going to be a lot of nights where it's just run and gun. And even though they finished – what was their record last year in the conference? I mean, they were 13-7 in the conference last year, so they finished fifth. But how do you how do you stay consistent? How do you stay at that level with the type of ball that they play? So, Mike, are there any big concerns for you? Like they have returned a lot of good shooters. Are there things that stand out to you for this team that we're going to need to watch maybe a little bit more on the negative side to see if this Demon Deacon team can elevate themselves, because we have them at number 10.
Yeah, I'm concerned. Alondes Williams and Jake LaRavia, right? I mean, 2 huge losses. I know that, returning Davian Williamson, a really good shooter, like you mentioned, 4 guys that shot 40% last year, 2 via the portal, 2 that are coming back. Monsanto is one of my favorite players. Are any of these guys going to be like lead dogs, though? I mean, that's the question. I don't know who's going to take the next step. I think you got a lot of good role players. Tyree Appleby, probably a little bullish on his transfer ranking. I had him at number 38. A lot of places probably closer to 60s and the 70s. Don't know if he can really take over games. He played really well at Florida last year. Jawatuka, he's interesting. He's from making the transfer over from Marist. I mean, shot 41%. This guy can shoot, but it's a whole different animal when you're going against the Miamis and the Dukes, North Carolinas of the world. Can he get his shot off? I just don't know that this team has a dominant playmaker that's out there to make this easier for these guys out there. There's no Isaiah Wong. There's no Taquavian Smith. There's no Love and Davis for North Carolina. That's what makes those teams dangerous. You break those teams down, the game becomes so much easier. We always talk about it, right? You always hear it every February, March, guard plays what wins it. So a lot of good players assembling on this team. Even Andrew Carr is going to kind of be a stretch 5 for them. But defensively, it's a little scary. You lose a lot of your defensive pieces. And, I just can't – I don't know if Eric's going to be sad to hear me keep saying that Alondes Williams is gone and Jake LaRavia are gone, but that's kind of what it is for Wake Forest for me.
Man, I've got a bone to pick with LaRavia, but we'll leave that for the DFS show. And if nothing else, right, like Coach Forbes has shown that he is going to push the tempo with this team, so should be an exciting one to watch. That will wrap up our middle tier of teams. We just went 4 through 10. So we want to hear from you if you're checking in on YouTube. First, hit those like and subscribe buttons. And then of this middle pack of teams that we've just run down, Virginia, Notre Dame, NC State, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, and the Deacons, is there anyone in that lot that you think can surprise and make a bit of a run here for the ACC in 2022? So let us know in the comments. If we agree with you, if we disagree with you, whatever it might be, we'll flash you up on the screen and we'll carry the conversation forward. So that brings us to the bottom tier. Obviously, a very stacked conference top to bottom, but there are some teams that look like they're in a position to come up a little bit short. So with that, we'll move kind of quickly through these. Our number 11 team, Boston College, coming in here, a team that's certainly had plenty of success in the conference, at least in the past, but not too distant past. Mike, why don't we talk about maybe one thing to like or that might surprise about this team as we jump into the bottom third of the conference?
I think the thing to like here is you're getting 4 starters back. We talked about how valuable getting 5 starters back for Virginia was. Well, you're getting 4 of these guys back. The Langford brothers, Quentin Post is probably one of the most underrated bigs in this conference. Jaden Zachary can really shoot it, but he's really the only shooter on this team. I don't know, man. At times last year they looked really sloppy. Defensively, I just don't think they have much there to kind of stop these upper and middle tier teams. So, for me, it's going to be one of those seasons kind of drag through. But it's always nice to get 4 guys back. I just don't know if they can really put everything together. Jay, any quick thoughts on Boston College?
I think the 4 starters can be a gift and a curse in the situation, right? Like when you have that sort of continuity after going 13-20, and like you said, you sort of look a little lost at times, not really playing together. Is returning 4 starters the best thing in the world? But also, Eric, like you mentioned earlier in the show, like it's such a rarity in college basketball to have that sort of continuity. So I do feel like if there is a team in this bottom tier of our rankings that could maybe jump up a little bit, it could be Boston College, because they've played together so well. And, they did have a nice recruiting class. So, how can they apply those guys coming in with the returning players and maybe, take a little bit of a step forward. Don't really anticipate them dropping into the top half of this conference or top third especially. But I think this team, because they did, have that much continuity going in, they could put it together with that strong recruiting class and maybe surprise somebody.
Yeah, they are in this bottom third, but not all hope is lost for Boston College. They've got a couple of things working in their favor. Our number 12 team, the Louisville Cardinals, we're looking at Kenny Payne heading into year one. Jay, quickly looking at this 12th team overall, anything that kind of jumps out as a potential highlight or something that could work in their favor next year?
Well, I think when you have a recruiting class like that with Kamari Lands and Devin Ray, they're ready. Those are guys that should get run right away. And with a team like this, again, you got a coach in year one that's trying to figure things out, going to have a little bit of a leash. So why not give some of these guys some run and see what you have, especially with the level of basketball that that they can play. They're ready for the college game. And to me, that's going to be seeing those two young guys get some run may allow Louisville to be a little more watchable this season. Mike, anything, positive and maybe something that maybe on the negative side for this Cardinal team?
Yeah, I'm worried about the guard play. Who's going to play the point guard? I guess Ellis is going to play 40 minutes. It's just really interesting. You look at top to bottom this roster, and it's a little nerve-wracking. This roster is really in flux after kind of everything that happened. They missed on a lot of guys in the portal. So, yeah, for me, Mike James, he's coming back off injury, but he's more of an off-ball guard. So Ellis gets in the foul trouble, he gets injured. It's going to be kind of scary for this team. I know that a few weeks ago, news broke that Fabio Basili, who was kind of a 3-star, depending on what site you look to unranked, is going to reclassify from 2023 and come into the 2022 class. And he's a lead guard by trait, but he's really ready for the spotlight. I guess he can spell Ellis for a few minutes here. The guard play is just really scary for me.
Yeah, certainly a big question mark. Ellis isn't necessarily that guy, or at least isn't that type of player. So, heading into the season with those kind of questions, obviously cause for concern. Our number 13 team, we're going to add injury, or rather insult to injury. They are down here at number 13, largely because of injury. That's the Clemson Tigers. Absolute gut punch to see PJ Hall get injured in the offseason. One of the bright spots for them last year, but without him in the rotation, very much so looks like it's going to be a bit more miss than hit in 2022. Mike, any other thoughts about the Tigers, or maybe some things that you think can be a bright spot for their upcoming season?
Yeah, I mean, Hall was one of our favorite players in DFS last year. Just a lot of fun to watch. Really knows how to play the game. Losing him, I think he's scheduled to come back sometime in mid-December, but you know how that kind of goes. Could stretch into January. So can he get right by the time late February gets here, early March? Maybe this team can make a run, but there's not a lot of, explosive athletes on this team, I guess. So, yeah, obviously that's why we have them down here at the bottom. He is also a key factor in controlling the paint. They're going to have to figure that out, and also a dynamic threat on the offensive side. So a huge blow to start the year, and, probably would have been more probably would have slotted them more in that 9-10 spot potentially, but just without him, it's just going to be a little tough for these guys. So, Jay, any thoughts on maybe any bright stars that could potentially help save their season?
Well, Josh Beadle has had a nice offseason, played really well in the overseas games that they had. It's somebody that you're looking for help at this point, right? Like anybody, please step up, at this point. So if Beadle can duplicate that play that he had on the foreign tour, he's somebody that you look like, or that you might think could take on a large role. It's just like you said, Mike, it's just not an explosive team at all. Play slow, not a really, tempo wasn't great. Is that going to change much with the players that they have? Probably not. So, again, this is an opportunity to watch some of these players that somebody's going to try to make a name for themselves. And if somebody can step up, we might be talking about someone else on this roster by the end of the season. But, it's tough. Look for Beadle, though. I think he's somebody to stand out, somebody to keep an eye on as Clemson gets going.
Yeah, and I know we haven't touched a ton on the DFS side here, other than maybe licking some of our wounds from last year. But very much so with these bottom tier teams, someone is going to emerge and at least kind of outkick their coverage a little bit. Those are typically guys that we have been able to make some hay with as we kind of get a better feel for how the rotations and how the usage will play out. So if nothing else, a team that we will likely be talking about once we start covering DFS slates here in a couple of weeks' time. Number 14 team is a team that's not down in these ranks all that often. That's the Syracuse Orangemen coach Jim Boeheim heading into year 27. His reward for his longevity, he gets to see his boys head out the door along with several other key contributors. Maybe if he hangs on long enough, he can start coaching some grandkids before long. But Jay, looking at these Orangemen, anything that is either a point of interest or that might surprise the people out there as we get to the bottom of our list?
I mean, Boeheim is Boeheim. That's a name that you know anywhere you go in the country. But it's also another coach that is very much, this is the brand of basketball that we're playing. Right? Still playing the 2-3 zone. Still, it's just it is who he is, right? Like, and that's not going to change like at all. They're going to have to be better on the defensive side of the ball if they plan on being competitive at all. They're just going to have to be better. But I think that in spite of not having that great of a year, it did turn out a pretty decent recruiting class. And Mike, I think that could be something that they could maybe capitalize on and elevate themselves from the bottom of these rankings if those recruits get some run early on and show that they're as good as they were touted to be.
Yeah, I think this recruiting class is going to have to be huge this year. I mean, you lose the Boeheim brothers. You also lose Cole Slider, who's probably going to make an NBA roster with this outside shooting. My thing is it's going to be this recruiting class, and then the two guys that are coming back, Joseph Girard. I mean, this guy can absolutely score. He's going to be the number one option, so he's someone interesting to watch this year. Jesse Edwards coming back from injury, really does well in that 2-3 zone, being that middleman, but he got hurt in the middle of the year, so that kind of hurt them defensively. But yeah, for me, Judah Mintz got to be good. 4-star on 24/7, number 50 player overall. You got some other 4-stars coming in, and it's more of a rebuild season this year. So don't expect much from them. Don't expect them to be very good defensively. They obviously lose Buddy Boeheim, who is one of the better scorers in the ACC the last few years. So yeah, and don't see the Boeheim name down here at the bottom of the cellar most of the time. But that's what it's looking like this year.
Yeah, looks like we're certainly heading into a down year. Obviously, Boeheim can coach him up a bit, but a lot of things would have to break right for them to potentially make any noise here in the conference. And our last stop on our countdown, the number 15th ranked team, Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Coach Passner, at least last season, was a lot like me in the 90s, really getting it done, rocking with DeVoe and with Usher. Obviously, those dudes are out the door. Mike, any bright spots left for these Yellow Jackets, or is it more bad news?
Have you been waiting this whole time? Like, have you been waiting all show to get that in? I mean, because
it was amazing.
It was worth it. It was worth it.
That's the only reason why I'm here.
Oh my goodness, I did not see that coming, but I love it. Yeah, they're big losses, not only for the '90s music scene, but also for everything we got going on in the basketball scene here. So yeah, not much here, man. Not a lot of talent here. Man, if someone can kind of step up, a Devin Smith or Miles Kelly here, hopefully it'll help offset some of those losses. But yeah, it's going to be a tough year for Pastner. They went 5-15 last year, so I don't know if they can even get to 5 wins this year. But you never know; it's college basketball. Jay, any thoughts?
Can't turn the ball over as much. Have to be better on the offensive side of the ball. Just period. Gotta be able to create more possessions for themselves that don't result in turnovers. Otherwise, this is going to be another long season for Georgia Tech.
Certainly feels that way. We have now completed all 15 teams in the ACC, top to bottom. Hope everyone out there listening and watching has been able to get a better gauge for how we believe the conference will shake out. Before we close, Mike, I want you to take us home. We teased it at the top. I want you to name your first team all-ACC players for the 22-23 season.
Yeah, so we're going to do 6 guys here. We're going to go to 3 guards, 3 forwards. The first one being Caleb Love, the guard from North Carolina. Great outside shooter. Obviously took his team, led them all the way to the title game last year, along with Armando Bacot, who we're projected to be player of the year. He's a beast in the middle. Not a lot of people can stop this man. And hey, he's a year older, more experience, and hopefully getting better and better. And that's kind of scary. So definitely have 2 North Carolina players up there at the top, which is fitting. We're going to slide over to our guy, Terquavian Smith, the absolute bucket getter from North Carolina State. Should have been that late first rounder in the NBA draft, but deciding to come back and hopefully impress for the Wolfpack fans here. And then Isaiah Wong from Miami, someone that can get it done for this team. We saw what he did last year. If he can improve that outside shot like Jay talked about, he's going to be even scarier. I'm projecting him to be on this list as well. Jaden Gardner, we talked a little bit about him, part of the starting 5 that's coming back for Virginia, just a bulldog inside. Can make a lot of things happen. I think he gets even better this year. And then Tariq Whitehead, you got to have one of these Duke guys. Kyle Filipowski could be on there. Derek Lively could also be on there. Those are 3 of the 4 top recruits in the nation coming in this year. But I think it's Whitehead for me, someone that can really make plays, that wing, 6'6" wing that can really get to the bucket, can shoot a little bit, and also has a prowess on the defensive side. So I'm going to go Love, Smith, Wong, Gardner, Whitehead, and Baycott to round out the ACC first team.
Man, sounds like a pretty solid first team by just about any measure. Those of you that are still hanging with us here in the YouTube comments, hit that like button if you have not already, and let us know, who do you project making that first team all ACC? It's funny. We go top to bottom in this conference, and as we rank these 6 players, 4 of them are from the teams that are in our top tier, right? So it's not surprising that those teams are ultimately being projected the way that they are. As we wrap up here in the ACC, definitely stay tuned with us here at Green Screens Media. We're going to be going through these type of breakdowns and previews for all the major conferences. We're going to be doing some work with the mid-majors as well. We've got our famed off-season interviews still ramping up with a pretty exciting surprise on the horizon. And as always, if you're wanting to find any of our college basketball coverage, the best place to do it is over at drroto.com. You can get yourself subscribed and get access to the big board that we've made reference of. You can get access to plenty of the player and team breakdowns that Mike has been working on. You can also get yourself over to TikTok at Get Green Screens on TikTok. Check out Jay's top 20 breakdown. Check out our breakdowns of the recruiting classes. Everything that you need to get ramped up for the college basketball season that is looming, and everything that you need to get this bread.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.